You're listening to the TyePod, hosted by your friendly neighborhood PhD. Well, hi everybody, it's another edition of the TyePod, and today I'm really excited to be joined by Sean Gold, who is a speaker and advocate and also an author of multiple books right at this point. And you'll be hearing a voice transcriber. His name's Josh. He'll be providing some of the answers for Sean. So yeah, it's great to have you, and definitely excited to hear, kind of what you've been up to since we talked last. So yeah, first, I guess if you could just talk a little bit about just your story, just, very briefly, and kind of, what you're involved with and how you got to this point.
Yes, well, like you said, my name is Sean Gold. My pronouns are he/him. I have a tracheostomy breathing tube and cerebral palsy. My passions are writing, public speaking, and advocating for the disabled community. My purpose is to inform people about disabled rights and to make people think more about it.
Right.
I began speaking at about 16 years old in Texas. Did my first TED Talk at 20, and at 25, I'm a twice published author signed to a speakers agency, and it's been a huge blessing.
Awesome. That's perfect. Well, that's really cool that you were able to do a TED Talk that early on. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like?
Auditioned for TED Talks in 2018, and in January 2019, we started preparing for the event. There were 6 of us in the event. I was the youngest, and we all had coaches. It was a wonderful experience and a great first step in the profession.
I love that. Like, I think that's, kind of one of the big speaking engagements you can get into at any point, and it seems like it has a really wide audience and gets the message out, in a really good pace, it seems like. So that's really cool. As far as like, I guess, activities or things that you're involved with, I know, quite a lot of advocacy and spreading awareness, but like I guess for me, sometimes with a disability, sometimes it's nice to have kind of an escape or something fun or a hobby to do kind of to balance out. But is there anything that you kind of like to do in your free time to kind of get away and, maybe just do something fun just purely for fun?
I have some of the hobbies. I enjoy playing games like The Sims 4, playing blackjack, hanging out
Oh,
with
nice.
friends, watching YouTube series,
Mhm.
and my niece is over here almost every day, so
Oh, nice.
play with her a lot.
How old is she?
3.
3. I have a nephew that's just about to turn 4 this month. So that's being an uncle is pretty awesome. Like I can say from my experience too. So that's great. Um, yeah, and I feel you on the YouTube, I always talk about like the rabbit hole that you go down when you get there because you end up places that you never imagined. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. But that's cool. I think that's good to kind of at least, obviously you want to spend a lot of time with your passion or what your job is and then volunteering and everything. But yeah, I just like to know a little bit about hobbies too. How about you have a podcast and I was on, I want to say a year, maybe a year and a half ago, I was on your podcast, but if you want to talk a little bit about like what the process was like and maybe what the mission is, of your podcast.
Yeah, the podcast is called Crippled by Culture. It's a YouTube podcast that discusses pretty much anything in life related to the disabled and chronically ill communities,
Mhm.
celebrating the disability community through education, empowerment, unity, and intersectionality. We strongly hold anti-racist, anti-patriarch, anti-cis, hetero, normative, queer affirming, and absolutely anti-ableist values. Uh, I want you to share your experiences with us. Sorry, I love it. That's what Facebook's like. Uh, and the world. Whether you want to talk about music, advocacy, your favorite music genres, medical trauma, the education system, talk to you about your passion through a disability lens. The first season had a wide range of topics like school accommodations, dancing to human dancing, and human trafficking. I was able to interview Lottie, who is a black line singer and songwriter, and even the former co-host of The Real, Janine May. Season 2 had 13 episodes with celebrity R&B singer Duran Bernard for the season finale.
Mhm.
The podcast is available on YouTube and all other podcast platforms.
Awesome. That's so great, that you're focusing on more than just say the disability lens, I think because we're so much more, complicated, like well-rounded, like, there's so many nuances of being, I guess, being human in a way, that you can bring in and talk about, like, like disability is obviously a huge part of who many of us are, but like we have all these other things that you know, we're passionate about, that we go through, relate to, so I think that intersectionality is such an important thing to bring in, and I know that as I'm sort of advancing and moving forward with starting my podcast, I'm looking at ones like yours and how you've kind of approached that, from the start. And so I think that's a really good, you know, model to try to follow for sure. Um, but yeah, that's great. And I'm definitely excited to see, yeah, is that something you're going to continue in the future? Just keep doing that kind of, I guess, routinely. Yeah, that seems to be a challenging thing too, is I know that you can go two approaches, right? Like you can have several episodes recorded over time, like maybe you could even do 5, 10 a week, but you're still releasing them periodically, maybe once a week or something. But it's tricky because you want to get the stories out there sooner, but also, you want to spend time editing and making sure that everything comes out as well as it can. So I definitely I'm trying to figure out what that fine line is between, having routine guests and then spreading it out enough. So, yeah, I bet you've experienced some of those types of things too, probably.
I wish we could do that many a week, but it's actually barely been once a week.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely understand that. Um, yeah, but if you're okay with it, we'll switch a little bit to the cerebral palsy side of your life. And I just if you could share a little bit about when you first noticed it. Was it something from birth or was it diagnosed maybe later on? Um, yeah, just anything you want to share on that.
I was 4 months old when I was diagnosed.
Mhm.
It was halfway correct. I do have cerebral palsy, but the first doctor thought I would be a full-time wheelchair user,
Mhm.
but I can walk independently. And thankfully, I was diagnosed fast. Like I said, it was at
Yeah,
4 months, and I got a breathing tube uh, at 1 year old. I've been pretty lucky and blessed to have continuous, amazing doctors and therapists who have always had my best interest.
that makes such a difference having that support system there for sure. Um, I'm always curious, and it's hard to, I guess, relate in a sense, but for me, my symptoms showed up probably around 8 or 9 for muscular dystrophy, and then, progressively I required more and more assistance with, wheelchairs, and then In the last 5 years, I had to get a tracheostomy, and I have a ventilator too. So, there's been a lot of change there. But I always think a little bit about like when your like symptoms or when your, different disabilities start, like if it makes a difference if you grow up with it versus if you get it later in life. So that's something I kind of think about. But if I'm curious, do you have any like thoughts on that? Like, do you think it made it easier or harder growing up with it, from a very young age?
Bill, before I answer that question, just a quick side question. What kind of trach is it?
Let's see. You mean like the brand name or?
Uh, Brand name type of
Yeah, so I have
whatever.
well, the ventilator's a trilogy, but that connects to, I believe the trach is I think Shiley is the brand. I'm trying to remember the exact number. I want to say like a C6. Does that sound right at all? I'll have to look to get you the exact specifics. But it does have like a inflatable cuff on the inside, and I have like a cannula, that has to be switched out. I'm sure you're aware of kind of all that. So I was just curious your thoughts on like the idea of growing up with cerebral palsy versus, maybe something that people will have developed later on that they deal with. Do you find that maybe growing up with it, you're able to sort of adapt and, and I guess do the things that you want to do early on because of the early diagnosis?
Mm. I feel like it was easier because I grew up, because I didn't have to go through like a learning curve
Mhm.
to get used to it. I was born disabled, so it's all I knew.
Right, that makes total sense. Yeah, I feel that way too, that you learn to just live your life with it versus, say you're in your 30s or something and you have it for the first time. I feel like you're going to go through much more trying to, continue doing what you were doing before to the best of your ability. And then you're going to obviously have to change and adapt quite a bit, just like out of nowhere. So yeah, I definitely relate to what you're saying, on that. Um, as far as like accessibility with cerebral palsy, like in general, like in public or maybe in school, is there, I guess, some needs that you see that need to be met that haven't yet in terms of accessibility?
Well, first of all, neither Medicaid or Medicaid, sorry, Medicare will pay for community-based nurses. I can't really do my own breathing tube, so I can't really go places by myself. None of my friends are trained yet, although they will be this year, hopefully.
Yeah,
And that'll give me a little more freedom. Definitely be happier with that.
yeah. And so that Medicaid and Medicare don't cover really anything in terms of somebody to help like drive you or do anything with the breathing maintenance and all that. Yeah.
Not
I
really.
I've been really frustrated with that too, trying to navigate, personal help or assistance with that because obviously it's hard to find, first of all. And then second of all, if you have to pay out of pocket, that's almost an impossible expense, it seems like. Um, and in my experience too, it almost seems like you have to give up um, like other types of care with insurance to be able to, get more help with personal attendance and things.
Yeah, I have wondered if private insurance companies would be better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, you as far as like if you get disability benefits and things like that might help you pay for, groceries and food and everything. But if it doesn't cover help with, with attendance, it's I mean, you shouldn't have to give up one to get the other, you know. Um, so I just think how ridiculous that has been for sure, and I know that the entire insurance thing is just this huge mess, that we could probably go on for hours about. Um, but yeah, as far as like advocacy and awareness stuff too, like are there specific groups or organizations that you've been working with? Oh,
Well, I try to do a lot to raise awareness. Like I said, I'm very active on social media.
mhm.
I write books, do the podcast, and public speaking.
Yeah.
People can request me through my agency, Collective Speakers. I've been speaking for 10 years now, professionally for 6,
Mhm.
and I've loved every single thing about it. And I'm very thankful that God has trusted me on this journey.
Right. Right, absolutely. Eh, It's so cool too how you're using different media, right? Like you're using podcasts, you're using books, you're doing, public speaking events, you're trying to cover kind of all the different areas, that you can to get that awareness out to people. Your books, I know that I think one of them is recent, right? Is in the last year you published. Do you want to talk a little bit about that one and maybe a few of the others that you've worked on?
Yeah, I'm writing 2 books at once right now.
Oh wow, that sounds busy.
Yeah, they're both still in the early chapters, so
Yeah.
it'll be a few years until they come out. But if I can do one more in this decade, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the book that's already about out is basically a children's book. It's like an ABC children's book that, like goes each letter and relates it to like the disabled community.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's really great. So are you going to be doing like some speaking like tours or something with schools to promote that when or is it already published? I wasn't sure if it was yet or not.
Yes, it is published.
Yeah.
I've actually, there are actually 2 books I've written. Sorry, I missed part of the answer. The first is the picture book that I just mentioned.
Mhm.
Another one is called Pure Love, or Is It, which I published back in 2021. And the children's book was released last year in September 2024, ABCs of Disabilities.
That's really cool. I think I bet the reception to that has been great too. That seems like a really creative approach to get different disability terms out there and make it more of I guess, something that's part of life from an early age in a way.
Yeah. Uh, I actually just texted my book project manager
Mhm.
the other day, and we're going to try and connect with schools and bookstores for some more events.
That would be great. Are you going to try to go to several in person, or do you think that they'll be virtual or a combination maybe?
Uh, in person feels so much better, so probably try to do that more.
Right. Yeah, that would be great. I always look at those like book tours and think how, that's kind of a unique experience to travel around and meet people and share, your work like in a personal setting too. What I'm curious, like how you started with this book. Was it just an idea that you had one day, or how did it develop, the the most recent one, the ABC one?
It was basically just an idea in my head, and I wrote it down. I
Yeah.
be I began writing it just 2 months after the first book was released.
Okay. And what's the publishing process like? Do you go through, um, like, did you self-publish, or did you have a publisher that you worked with? And um, was that or were there any parts that were challenging with that process?
I've been self-publishing, and doing that way is expensive, but I always want to be independent with my books.
Yeah, that makes so much sense too. I think you would probably have a level of control and independence on that you wouldn't have if you have a publishing agency or something that's doing it. In terms of writing itself, like for me, it's been difficult because I've gradually lost some of my hand and arm strength as far as typing goes. Have you used any kind of adaptive tools for any part of like the creation of the book, or like even like the graphic design or art too with it? Like, well, I'm curious how that process was for you.
I write on Google Docs on my phone and iPad. No accessible, sorry, no accessibility tools
Yeah.
required. I also have to shout out my book team at EditWrite for being a major help with my project managers. And I also have to give a thank you to RIC St. Louis, aka the Regional Arts Center, for my grant to pay for the illustration and illustrators at Pretend Friends. I couldn't have done it without them.
Yeah, it sounds like a good team. I think that would definitely be a must for, writing a book and getting it out there and everything. So that's really cool that you're, continuing on and writing more, I think too. I'm definitely going to look forward to seeing them in the future. Well, it's been great, Sean, visiting with you. I wanted to give you just a minute. Is there anything you'd like to touch on specifically now, or something that you're doing moving forward? Obviously the books and speaking engagements for sure, but any other things going on with?
Well, like I said, I have two more books coming out
Hmm.
uh, within a few years. I've been thinking about learning screenwriting too, and to turn the books into movie scripts. I've been taking a
Nice.
course. I've been taking a course with a group of amazing creatives. We're reading The Artist Way, and it's kicking our asses, but at the same time, it's reignited my passion to try screenwriting and acting. So we'll see what happens.
That's a great idea though. And maybe a little bit of ass kicking is a good thing in that sense, but but yeah, that's great though that you're, taking that and developing it, even more. So and I think that disability and, in film and everything I think it's gaining ground. So hopefully, that continues to be um, more and more, available, because there's a lot of talent out there from the disability community and a lot of good stories to tell. So I'm really excited to see what you do there too. Um, but yeah, I sure appreciate the time, Sean, and for people that want to follow you or visit or find more about you, is Instagram kind of the best place to go, or where do you like people to find you and follow more?
Well, I'm everywhere at author Sean Gold. I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Twitter. I'm not calling it the other thing.
Mhm.
Uh, and my LinkedIn is Sean Gold. My books are on Amazon, and the alphabet book can be found at several retailers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's great to see that you're kind of involved in so many different areas, of everything. So that's great. And I'll definitely, share and let people know where to find out more about all the good stuff you're doing.